Hi, my name is Rynell Lumpkins, and the name of my project is titled Marijuana Inside Out, and it's on the drug marijuana. Okay, so firstly, I want to talk a little bit about why I chose this drug in the first place. So, the reason why I chose this drug is mainly because, as an African American individual, especially back during the 80s and 90s, and even a little bit in the early 2000s, a lot of African Americans were disproportionately incarcerated due to this very drug, along with other drugs, but marijuana was primarily one of them. So it just it it's something that's a little bit close to me. Um, I've had family members and close friends who have gotten into it with the law and stuff like that. I've seen a lot of my family members go behind bars because of this. So now I'm going to talk about how the drug has progressed legally. So when it came to the 1930s, this was when um, the drug was sort of kind of scrutinized a little bit because we were in the Franklin D. Roosevelt era. So for a lot of his viewpoints when it came to his campaign, they were very, I don't want to say discriminatory, but um, the term divide and conquer. You try to make it seem as though there's an even bigger enemy that you have to fight. And I want to say Franklin D. Roosevelt, he did a wonderful job at portraying this. He pretty much gave the image that anybody who was on marijuana, you know, it makes you lazy, it makes you unmotivated, it makes you just all around just a not a good person. And so marijuana became criminalized because of this when he was in office, and then later on it was further reinforced during the Ronald Reagan era um, in the 1980s, and with him he incorporated a lot of. Uh, this is where I want to say that the target for black and brown areas was became a little bit more. He did something. He made a movement known as the War on Drugs, and it incriminated a lot of people. It locked a lot of people up, primarily those who are black and brown. Um, However, around 2012, Canada was um, the first state to legalize it. I'm going to say recreationally, to the point where anybody could use it. And California soon followed, and a lot of other states here in America followed as well. Now there are certain states that have still criminalized weed and made it so that you can't use it recreationally. But again, there are a lot of states who have. So you just have to look, at your state. However, it is still considered a class one drug federally. Um, State-wise, it depends on your state. So now I want to talk a little bit about how the drug is is processed in the body. So with the with marijuana, it can either be absorbed into the body primarily by two ways. It can either be ingested or you can smoke it by inhalation. Usually, when you inhale it, it gets into your system a lot faster as opposed to ingesting it. Simply because when you ingest it, it has to go down your digestive tract, which can take a little bit longer and be absorbed through your intestines once it reaches your gut. So this can take a little bit longer. Um, I want to say so The main component for marijuana is THC. Now CBD, um, they can have effects on the brain and on the body, but primarily THC is the main component that you really talk about when you talk about marijuana. This gives you the main high effect um, that people talk about, and it once it gets into your bloodstream again, either through inhalation or through ingestion, it goes into your brain and it passes the blood-brain barrier and it enters into your endocannabinoid system, and it attaches itself to your cannabinoid receptors. Um, Now, when time comes to where you want to stop or when you want to get off, if you want to eventually get off, um, it is not fatal. It's it can be habit forming, but it is not fatal. You will not die from it. However, you will experience a little bit of discomfort. Um, I found that a lot of people, when getting off of marijuana, they tend to be a little bit more irritable. I want to say they they sometimes can have a lack of appetite, and I've even seen some people have an increase in anxiety and even depression when they get off of it. But usually, those symptoms reside usually after around 2 weeks, and you'll start to feel yourself come back to normal. Um, Again, the once it is in once it passes the blood brain barrier and enters and attaches itself to your cannabinoid receptors, it is then excreted. It goes through the liver where it is filtered and filtered from the blood, and it is turned either into urine or feces, and it is excreted out, or it can be sweated out. But this is um, it's primarily excreted through urine and feces. Um, Marijuana can affect different people differently. So not only does it just depend on your specific brain chemistry, it can also depend on the things that you've been through, and also the strain itself. There are two main different types of marijuana. We have indica and we have sativa. Sativa. Um, Researchers say that sativa it puts you up and it's an upper, and indica is more of a down, so it puts you in more of a relaxed um, in trance state. Um, some people may find that, especially if they started smoking when they were relatively young, they may find that it can affect their memory, and they kind they kind of have a hard time remembering to do things, or they might remember something just to forget it. Another thing is it's a lot harder for people who have smoked at such a young age for them to grasp certain concepts, and surpass certain learning barriers that non-smokers their age might be easier for a little bit for them to be able to develop. Um, Another thing is people often experience something called the munchies, where basically you just get really hungry. Of course, this is just, in layman's terms, this is just your body trying to absorb and excrete all of the THC out of your system, and so it needs energy to do that. Thus, it makes you want to eat. Um, People may also experience low eyes. They may sense a deep feeling of euphoria and relaxation. And again, this can be very habit forming. And another thing people may experience is something called cotton mouth, where basically their mouth just gets really dry. But this primarily happens if you're inhaling marijuana as opposed to simply ingesting it. Drug cost, it varies depending on your location. I know in Bermuda, uh, marijuana is very expensive there. It's a lot more expensive than over here in America. So when you're trying to get weed, usually they'll have it where they have it separated by grams, where you can get 3.5 grams, 7 grams, 14 grams. It usually goes up in increments of 7, and it varies in price because of that. So 3.5 grams, it usually can get you anywhere from $20 to $50. 7 grams, 35 to 100. It just depends on, for one, if you're getting it legally, or if you're getting from someone who you just know, just personally. They could charge you any price. If you're trying to get marijuana from somebody who you really don't know very well, they may charge you a little bit more because they don't know you, as opposed to somebody who you are a little bit closer with. Those kinds of things. And of course, if you go to where if marijuana is legal in your state, they may have like a base price for everything, depending on the economy in that area. So you just have to check with in a legal area. You just have to check. Usually, just go to any kind of dispensary, and they will usually let you know. So yeah, and there are also different types. There are also different forms that marijuana can present itself in. Most people, they buy the actual green flower. Some people, they like to get cartridges. The street term for them are carts, which is basically just THC oil. Again, that is the main that's the active ingredient in marijuana that gives it its properties. There are some people who sell edibles, which again is one of the ways that it can be ingested, where they separate the THC into a type of butter, and they use that butter to make different types of foods with. One well-known way that people like to ingest THC is by making something called weed brownies, where they extract the THC from weed into a butter, and they use that butter to bake brownies. And that's another way that you can, use it. How habit forming is the drug? Marijuana can be very habit forming. Depending on where you are mentally. If you are in a really dark place, with any drug, not just marijuana, there is a more likely chance that you are going to form a habit from that drug, simply because with any drug, it makes you feel good. That's what drugs are, that's what people use drugs for. And so because of that, when you are constantly feeling sad and when you are constantly feeling down, you may use that drug as a form of escapism in order to feel good all the time, even if it's temporarily. So definitely look within yourself, and if you want to try marijuana in a state where it is legal here in America, make sure that you are in a good headspace before you do any of those things, because you don't want to end up forming a habit where you are emotionally dependent on it for your sake of happiness. People may say that when getting off, they may become more irritable. They may experience a loss in appetite, and they may even experience different sleeping patterns So, in conclusion, cannabis, it was criminalized during the Roosevelt era, starting in the 1930s, and harsher punishments came about um, during the Reagan era, during the 1980s, where both of their petitions were primarily geared towards those who are black and brown. Um, it didn't become decriminalized until around 2012, where Colorado was the first state to decriminalize it, and eventually after that, California soon followed, and many other states throughout the years as well. Um, Cannabis can be inhaled um, by the lungs, or it can be ingested into the intestinal tract, which is where it is. It goes into the bloodstream. It passes the blood-brain barrier, and THC it goes into your endocannabinoid system, where it then attaches to your cannabinoid centers, and this is where you start to feel those euphoric feelings, and you start to feel a deep sense of relaxation, or you may feel anxiety and paranoia um, depending on your state of mind and just your brain chemistry in general. Again, inhaling it will give you that high a lot faster than ingesting it will. But with ingesting it, the high is a lot more intense. Um, once once it reaches the brain, it is then filtered out by the liver, and it is excreted either by urine or feces. And again, it can be excreted through sweat. However, urine and feces are the main ways it is excreted. Again, cannabis affects different people differently. It just depends on who you are. Marijuana, it can be sold at a range of different prices depending on not only the strain that you're trying to get, but the form that you're trying to get the marijuana in, whether that be the pure THC oil, the flower, or you're getting the THC baked into something that you can ingest. Um, Cannabis is addictive. It is very habit forming. However, it is not fatal if you decide that you want to get off. You may become a little bit irritable. You may feel a sudden loss in appetite, and you may experience different sleeping patterns. However, after a couple of weeks, everything should go back to normal and you should feel fine. Um, so, my bibliography, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sources, and they are all from well, not all of them, but some of these are from the UWG library. Um, I try to get a couple of scholarly articles on here.